Take back your soul. This is another transmission from Mahadeva here at thunderwizard.com headquarters, where you find the world's only unified spiritual energy system at thunderwizard.com. Get ready, because here I come. Hello, YouTube. This is Mahadeva the Thunder Wizard. And today I want to talk to you about the different versions of God, if you will. I think I'm going to entitle this video Shiva or Vishnu. Which one is the real God? Now, as you know, if you follow my channel, I don't think in these terms, but there are a lot of people who do, and this is a common discrepancy between people who worship Vishnu and people who worship Shiva. And no, Shiva is the Almighty God. No, everything is Krishna. Everything is Vishnu. And so we're going to take a look at this from a holographic perspective, and you're going to learn something about yourself. And the assumption that I'm operating from is that what you are drawn to in terms of your spiritual practice, everyone is different. Everybody has different needs in this life, and everybody has different needs that they need to accomplish about how to realize the self. And various deities and various practices do different things for different people based on their current lifetime needs, the nature of their particular soul, their past life, etc., etc. So how is it that both can be right? Because I'm saying both are right. Anybody who says that Vishnu is the one true God, they're correct. Somebody says, no, Shiva. Shiva is the Mahadeva, the great God. He is the one true God. I'm going to say you're right also. And we're going to take a look at some of the ways that different deities associated with both Vishnu and Shiva, how they help each particular individual achieve awareness, and some of, besides the benefits, some of the pitfalls. Because whenever you get too tied up in one mindset, if you get attached to it, then there's the potential for a pitfall, which is why there's multiple religions and multiple sects within religion. Okay, so of course I'm always thinking about what I can put on the channel, and so I was looking at different things today, and went on somebody's website who, as it turns out, is a worshiper of Krishna. And so listening to him talk, I listened to some of his videos, I became aware of why I'm not a Krishna worshiper, because that religion just would not work for me. It's far too much like Christianity. Basically, if you take Krishna worship and Jesus, and you take out the word Jesus and you put the word Krishna, and then have people, shave their heads with little ponytails and dance with tambourines, there's really no difference between Krishna worshipers and Jesus worshipers in terms of that. Externally, they're very different, but in terms of the way they believe and the way that they worship, almost identical. So I'm going to explain to you why that is, and why it's okay that certain deities don't work for you, and certain types of sects within, what I would consider to be a traditional, functional, true spiritual path, why they don't work for you, and why some paths work for you and others don't. So first, in order to start this discussion, we need to refresh ourselves on something I teach you a lot, which I teach you in my books and in many of the videos. By the way, if you're new to the channel, please go to the links. Courses.thunderwizard.com has a link to all of my books, as well as all of my services and all of my video courses. Go check that out. Thunderwizard.com is the subscription site, and you can sign up for multiple subscription levels based on your interest. You can start out just as wanting mastery of shamanism, or you can subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Challenge, Lightning Qigong, which is I recommend that. This is where our focus is. But feel free to check out all of them. And of course, the maoshan.thunderwizard.com. So, all right, I did my plug for myself. All right, so 3 different selves. So, as I've written about in my books, especially the book, I forget if it's Advanced Rune Shamanism and the shamanism books, I talk about how in multiple traditions, whether it's Norse tradition of Odin, Vili, and Ve, whether it's the Hindu tradition of Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu, the Trimurti, the Trinity, whether it's Taoism, where you have heaven, earth, and man, or whether it's even Christianity, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, or whether it's just average New Age mind, body, spirit. No matter how you look at it, we have trinities. And that's because it's a real thing. We can't function well if we don't have all 3 of these things aligned. So we have in Vedic Hinduism, we have Brahma, which is the creator, which is representative of the lower self, the navel chakra, if you will. We have Shiva, which is representative of the higher, the third eye, and we have Vishnu. Vishnu is the preserver. So we have the creator in the navel, the destroyer, which is really about moving beyond limitations, and then we have the preserver, and this is Vishnu. Vishnu is about creating a safe place to be a limited human. So the way to be attached to the physical reality while at the same time moving beyond it. It's probably the most attractive path for the average human, because the average human wants to live. They want to have family, they want to have kids, they want to have success, they want to have health, they want to have stuff in the physical world. And so Vishnu is the savior. He is the protector, the preserver. And literally he creates a space, because that Vishnu means space. Just like Ve comes from the same root word, Odin, Vili, Ve. Ve means sacred space. The temple is called a Ve in the Old Norse tradition. So you understand the 2. One is the creator, which the lower the lower self is connected to the sexual chakra, creativity. And then you have the heart, which is where your soul is, which is the spirit experiencing physical reality. That's what your soul is here to do. And then you have the higher self, which wants to transcend beyond that. And so we have different deities. Now, in modern times, Brahma is not worshipped very often. And, we could talk about why that is, but I won't take up the time to talk about that. But Brahma, even though you can chant to Brahma, which interestingly enough will make you incredibly wise, you can also, in terms of worship, the main deities for worship is Vishnu or Shiva. And of course you have Shakti as well. That's a whole other thing, but we're talking about the male gods right now. All right, so what is the difference? So the reason why I thought about this was I was listening to this Krishna master teacher, and I really didn't jive with anything he was saying. It's not that I disagree with any of it. It just, the things that he says, the way he says it, his suggestions on what to do, and he definitely, being a good Krishna follower, he will say that Shiva is not, in fact, he even has a video that says Shiva is not God. Shiva is the devotee of God, the most ardent devotee of God, but Shiva is not God. Krishna is God. And so why would somebody talk like that? That sounds like what a Christian would say. Well, all of it is Jesus. Jesus is everything. Jesus is the one true God. Jesus, only through Jesus can you be saved. Sounds very similar to that. Well, that's because both of these are heart-centered deities. So when it comes to the Vishnu-centered practices, we have different avatars. Avatar means descend. So when we talk about a Vishnu avatar, we're talking about the universal soul, because your soul is here, the universal soul that takes uh, that takes human incarnation for the specific purpose of creating that safe space so that human beings can live spiritually and safely. And that's why the avatars of Vishnu always come to save humanity, and they fight against evil and destroy the evil demons in order for human beings to be liberated and to be safe. And if you've ever gone to like any kind of Krishna spiritual practice, a lot of singing, a lot of singing and a lot of chanting and a lot of intense devotion and sometimes some really ecstatic emotional experiences. People get very into it. And strong, intense devotion towards Krishna. And they talk about Krishna as God, which is different from how Shiva worshippers talk. They don't talk about God in that way. They talk about the divine within, and they talk about becoming one with infinity, and they see everybody as being God. They don't just see God and you worshiping God. So you hear a lot of different talk from a Shiva worshiper versus a Vishnu worshiper. And so one of the interesting things is, for me, is I go, why are they so focused, from my perspective, on this worship on an external God? Because that's why it sounds so much like Christianity. And it's so different from my experience with, my personal experience and my proclivity to lean more towards Shiva. Because from a Shiva perspective, you're God. You are God. Everybody is God. God is everything. God is nothing. And there is no need to proselytize or make somebody follow your path, because, Shiva is known for everybody follows him. One of the things about Shiva is that he doesn't exclude anybody. Doesn't matter what you do. You could be a prostitute, you could be a murderer, you could be, whatever the worst thing you can imagine, a drug addict, an alcoholic. He, come on over. Let's go to the burial ground and let's worship how impermanent all of that is. And, my take would be that is your superficial origin story that's made you whatever it is, a murderer, a thief, you're in pain, you're an addict. That's you being attached to limited ideas about yourself, and Shiva brings release from all of that. So he doesn't care who you are. He sees you as a soul that's seeking release. He has no judgment. Shiva worshippers are known to do things that Krishna worshippers would never do. The Aghoris are known for, their sexual practices, known for their alcohol consumption, their drug practices, living around, in graveyards, drinking out the skulls, of humans, things that Krishna worshippers would never even consider. Just to give you an example, when there is an eclipse, the Krishna worshippers will say, do not leave your home. Stay inside. Don't let that light touch you, because Rahu is a demon. Rahu, as we know, Rahu obscures the soul and obscures the mind. Do not let that touch you. In fact, you should be chanting. You should have, a candle and whatever other things, incense, and you should be chanting the name of Krishna so you can be protected from this evil experience. And the Shiva worshippers are exactly opposite. Like, no, let's go into the graveyard and let's cover ourselves with the ashes of people that have just been cremated, and let us chant to Rahu while he is swallowing the sun or the moon, and you'll have great knowledge. So you have these two completely different ideas about how to deal with things, and they're both right. So why is it that the Vishnu practitioners see God, or at the very least, they talk about it, they seem to see God, number one, as a singular thing, like a monotheist deity, outside of you? Why would they see that? Well, we have to understand the planet that is the avatar of Krishna. So the avatar is Vishnu, the heart center, and Krishna is the moon. So what happens when we combine the properties of the moon with the properties of the heart chakra? When we do that, we end up having a Krishna type of religious experience. So what is the moon? Here's, Mahadeva is the Shiva vibration of the moon. What is the moon? The moon is the mind. It's strongly associated nowadays with feminine qualities, strongly associated with emotions. We attach to people through our emotions. So any moon deity is going to have a strong emotional impact on the person, and they're going to be healed or empowered through their emotional body and all the things associated with it. So what happens when you take the moon and you connect it to the heart center? What you end up with is somebody who's extremely devoted to divinity. And because the moon reflects what? Reflects the soul. So the moon itself is saying, don't worship me. I'm reflecting the light of the sun, which is the soul. So the moon says, worship the soul. The soul is, I'm not the soul, I'm reflecting it. The soul is over there. In other words, the moon says, the soul is apart from me. It's outside of me, but I yearn for it, and I love reflecting it when I'm full of the soul. The moon is full, your mind is full, your meditative mind is full, your emotions are stimulated in a positive way, and of course this creates feelings of love. The moon is about intuition, is about connecting to everything. So what you end up having is this experience in the heart center, which just magnifies it hugely. Because the heart center is already that. The heart center is where the soul resides. It is where we experience our emotions. It's where we experience love and attachment. So the heart attaches. This is why we call heartbreak. Somebody broke your heart when they rejected you. When they broke off contact with you, it breaks your heart. It's like, you're super glued together, and then you have to tear that up, and you get all torn up inside because you're attached. The astrological sign of Cancer, has these little grippers here, the claws that attach. So the heart attaches, and the heart already is filled with intense emotion, love. So you combine this power of love with the power of reflective emotions, and so what does that do? That increases the love. So you will never find anybody more devoted to their deity than a Krishna worshiper, because now you have this supercharged emotional mind connection, this intuitive connection, this life force energy connection, and of course you have the heart center, which is love and devotion. So it's just expanded. It's huge. So what ends up happening is that this is an incredibly healing path for somebody who needs heart healing. The thing that I've never really understood about it, that I don't jive with, is that Krishna is always out of reach. He's just out of reach. And so you see that in the stories about him, the mythology about him, is that he has all these female cow herders who are just absolutely, completely obsessed with him and in love with him, but he won't commit to any of them. So, they have this seemingly codependent relationship where they just constantly are chasing after him, singing his praises, and just one look from him and they're, so they live for that. So it's unrequited love, which is the heart center, which is the moon, because the moon is a reflection of the soul. So this is very healing for people, and so that's why you have people that are like that. Now, this is reminiscent of Shiva Shakti, because Shakti is the feminine power, the earth power, that is constantly yearning for Shiva, who sits on the mountaintop. He's above it all in his, in his meditative realm, and she yearns for him. She tries to bring him down to her on earth. And so that represents the two halves of the person, the masculine and the feminine, which come together and become one. So you have this, and I've heard this explanation of Krishna worshippers, which I fully believe, because it makes sense to me in my experience with knowing Krishna worshippers and viewing them. And I myself have chanted Krishna mantras and done all of that, and I've experienced some of the spiritual and emotional effects of those kinds of mantra. And what they say is that if somebody is a Krishna devotee, like really like hardcore Krishna, whether they're male or female, their essence is feminine, because it's operating like Shakti. It's yearning for the masculine. It's yearning for Krishna. Always just a little bit out of reach, but just one look from him, one embrace, one kiss, and it's everything. And then they're emotionally, all of that. Of course, the moon is representative of water, femininity, all those other things. So those are some of the benefits. What's the downside? The downsides are obvious. The downsides are obvious. You've experienced this. If you've interacted with Krishna, they're very dogmatic. Their way is the only way. Their way is the best way. Every god, no matter who it is actually Krishna. And if you're worshiping some other god, then you have a lesser understanding. You're not as aware as they are, because if you were, you would come to their Krishna meeting and you would chant Hare Krishna with them, and you would read it, blah, 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 blah. You would go and you would get as many followers. So they're looking to proselytize. So here's the thing about some Vishnu deities. They create people who go out and proselytize. They go out looking for converts. The people who knock on your door and try to get you to buy into their belief system. These are people who are worshiping deities that influence their heart, because the immature aspect of the heart, which we all have to go through, is like a child. A child loves mommy. There's no other world. Mommy is everything. The other thing that goes on with the heart of a child is that when a child has an emotion, they have magical thinking about that. They believe if they have love, they can cure the whole world with their one feeling of love. They don't realize that other people have their own experiences, and if they have negative feelings, if they're angry, they feel that their anger has the ability to kill others, and that they don't realize, no, it's okay for you to have your own feelings, and your feelings don't have to affect me. Same thing as my love for Krishna, you have to be part of my thing. And you don't realize, no, you can have your thing with Krishna and somebody can have their thing with whatever deity that works for them. It doesn't make it any different, and it doesn't mean you're not connected. So that's the immature aspect of it, is thinking that if you feel it, it must be true. And maybe you've experienced this. I know I've experienced this in my life. Adults do this, but a lot of younger kids, like if you're in junior high or high school, you're just awakening to romantic love, and you fall in love with your boyfriend or your girlfriend, and or you get interested and you fall in love with somebody and want to date them, and you ask them out and they say, no, I'm not interested, and you think to yourself, but I know you love me, I love you, and they'll do things like, we have a connection, you can feel it, I feel it, therefore you must feel it. So this is obviously narcissistic, and because they have an experience of an emotion, they think it's universal throughout the world. this is the immature thing, and this is, of course, you see this with, in my experience, I've seen it with Krishna devotees. They're like that. So this is a path of awareness and a path of evolution where somebody has the experience of first acknowledging, because if you've been denied the ability to have your strong emotions, your strong feelings of love, and experiencing that, the ecstatic experience of just having love for somebody. And I think this is the brilliance of Krishna. Krishna allows his worshippers to have this intense love, and then he stays just out of reach. Why? So that they can experience their own emotional experience. So you find a lot of people who have been denied their emotions, who've been shamed out of their loving feelings and shamed out of their desire to connect. You find a lot of these people become very drawn to worshiping Krishna, because that's what he does. He allows you to have all of your loving feelings without needing to satisfy them. In other words, you need to find that, and then the evolutionary process is to go, oh, this is my feeling and it's beautiful and I love myself with this feeling. You don't have to, do what I want or merge with me. So I learn to merge with myself. So Krishna eventually becomes the self. Just like the moon eventually reflects the soul within. This is Krishna. But the moon is out away from the soul. Krishna is outside. And so they have almost a Abrahamic monotheist worship of an external God. And if you listen to them, it'll sound just the same. Like God is out there. And they even have a lot of, what this guy was saying is, how much you love Krishna, then he will love you back. So there's this feeling of you have to serve and love Krishna, just like with Christianity. You have to love Jesus, and then Jesus will love you back. Or, if you know what I mean. There's a give and take. The healthy part is that is allowing people really, when they say the more that you love Krishna, the more he will love you back. And so that means they desperately want to be loved. Their thing is they want to be loved. And what Krishna is saying is, I'm just going to say, stay just outside of reach so that you'll realize that it's about loving yourself. And then it's no longer about Krishna being out there, but about your soul being in here. So that's the moon. We'll talk about another one, which is Buddha. So Buddha is another Vishnu avatar. And Buddha is associated with the planet Mercury. So very different, both seemingly associated because the moon is the mind and Mercury is the intellect. In fact, the word for intellect in Sanskrit is Buddha. It's a slightly different spelling, but essentially means the same thing. It means the intellect. And so people who are drawn to Buddha in this life, these are people who are trapped in their intellect. So being in the intellect is a way of escaping painful emotions. So this may not describe every single person that's attracted to Buddha, but definitely I can see that this could be a possibility for some people. If in previous lives, to protect themselves, they were stuck in their head and they were stuck in their intellect, then in this lifetime, the soul is trying to connect the emotions, the heart, with the intellect. And so this is Buddha. Now, if you know, Buddha is an avatar, means that he was Vishnu who was put into physical form and walked the earth. And there really was a guy named Buddha. Whether there was a real Krishna that walked the earth or whether there was a real Rama or, all those, there's a lot of doubt about that. But we do know that there was a guy named Buddha who walked the earth. And his religion was very simple. It is almost the opposite of the Krishna version, which is Krishna is about attaching. You attach yourself to God as strong as you can. Your whole life is about completely, totally devoting and attaching yourself emotionally to God or Krishna. But the intellect is completely disconnected from the heart. And so you hear people say, don't think with your head, think with your heart. They're talking about that. Think with your emotions, think with your intuitive nature. And so what we have here is we have this fusion of the intuitive nature, the emotions with the intellect, and instead of pure religious ecstatic devotion to God, you have compassion. Compassion is a very intellectual thing. Compassion I would associate with empathy. So empathy is something that people really have a hard time understanding. There's so much misunderstanding about what empathy is. And in fact, people who have narcissistic tendencies, they're accused of not having any empathy. And you will find, especially like people who have borderline personality disorder, they will say, no, I have more empathy than anybody. I feel for every single living being on the planet. So they mistake their emotional feelings of, connection to others for empathy. But those feelings, when it comes to people who are narcissistic, they only last for as long as they're comfortable with. And the moment that something shifts within them, their feeling of attachment completely disappears. And then they act with no empathy, and they can be very cruel and very hurtful. And so people who, many people, even just quote healthy people, make the mistake of thinking that their feelings, their squishy attached feelings of love for other people, sympathy for other people, they think that's empathy. But empathy is actually a decision. When you decide to think from the other person's perspective, you decide to try and feel what it's like to be them, not project what they're feeling, which is what happens in the other cases. People have intense feelings of love or intense feelings of sympathy or whatever, and then they project it onto the other person, and then they think they know what's happening with the other person when it's not always the case. Or if they see somebody that's having a lot of feelings, that stimulates their own feelings, and then they project that, and then they think they're filled with empathy. But that's not what empathy is. Empathy is a decision to choose to understand what's going on with the other person and then act in ways that are in that other person's best interest. So one example would be if let's say you want to marry somebody, you love them, you have this intense feeling of love for them, it's killing you, you want to be with them. You come to the realization that for whatever reason, if they were to be married to you, that would damage them, that would limit them, that you see that, I want to go live in Australia and they want to live in Chicago. Then I would have to say, out of empathy, I would have to say, I can't give you what you want. I can't be there for you because I can't live in Chicago. I need to be where the waves are. And the other person says, I need to live in Chicago for whatever reason. Chicago, I don't know. And so that would be a sign of empathy on my part if I were to sacrifice what I wanted and or not give what the other person wanted, knowing that it was best for them if I denied them. So empathy can be disappointing yourself or disappointing somebody else. That's empathy. You're making a choice to understand what, this is why parents have to have a lot of empathy, because they have to know, this is what's best for my kid. They may not want that. I may not like the idea of not giving them what they want, but this is what they need. This is the best thing for them. So this is compassion. Compassion is not, I have a ton of emotional feelings and I get an emotional payoff by, showering you with love and gifts, and then I feel good. Look at how much I've given to you, or I get you to love me back. Compassion says, let's think about this other person and what is really best for them, irregardless. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Regardless of me. What is best for this other person, regardless of what I want or what I think? That is compassion, and that is the merging of the intellect, which is thinking things through, and the emotions. So we could have two scenarios where somebody was a Krishna devotee in a past life and they just completely gave all of their emotion and they projected all of their love on everybody, and they can't tell the difference between them and somebody else because the heart and the moon wants to connect, and they forget who they are, and there's no more boundaries anymore. And so in this life, they want to learn a higher form of love, which they're going to see as compassion. And so then they're able to use their intellect, which says, no, let's look at this. Here's the logic behind that, the best thing for that person, and it may not be what we want. And then you have compassion for somebody else, as opposed to empathy. So that's true empathy. And the other option could be somebody who lived in a past life who was stuck in their head the whole time and didn't have any empathy. And in this life, they're learning to take that and reduce their lack of empathy and learn to connect it to the heart and to the emotions and to have more compassion for others. So regardless of how somebody gets there, if in this life they're here to worship the avatar of Buddha, it means that they're here to merge the intellect with the heart. Krishna is about merging the mind and the emotions with the heart. And one of the drawbacks, the immaturity, is the same on both, because Buddhists make the same mistake as Krishna, and the same mistake as Christians. Buddhists will say Buddha is the only way. No, there is no Shiva. No, there is no Vishnu. There is just Buddha, and Buddha is the true religion, and all of that. And then they get so wrapped up in the intellectual aspect of what is the self, and is there a soul? No, there isn't a soul. There's only a self. And they get non-dual, and they get so wrapped up in all that intellectuality. Well, now they have a spiritual place to take all that intellectual craziness, and they can finally drop all that and get to a place of compassion. All right, so there's just two. I'm going to throw Jesus in here as well. Jesus is not a Hindu deity, but you see that there's a strong connection, a similarity between Krishna and Christian, Jesus and Krishna. So if Jesus were an actual avatar that lived on this planet, I don't think he was. I think that he's an idea. And there's mythology written about this idea of him. But Jesus is definitely Jupiter, without a doubt. Because what is Jupiter? Jupiter is sacrifice. Now, you don't see a lot of Krishna worshipers sacrificing themselves for others. They want you to be part of them and you be part of our love fest with Krishna. There's not a lot of sacrifice there. With Buddha, there's the sacrifice, but it's of a compassion nature. It has nothing to do with anything other than finding, first off, not being attached. So the intellect and the moon attaches, the intellect separates. So you have this non-attachment. The one thing that Buddha said, one of his students came to him and said, I've been here with you for X amount of years and you've never once talked about the soul, the afterlife, heaven or hell, gods or demons. When are you going to tell us about all that? And Buddha said to him, when did I ever say I was going to tell you all that? The only thing I've ever said is that attachment causes misery. And so that's the only thing I'm ever going to teach. If you don't like it, go somewhere else. So it creates that separation from all the emotional need of all that. And that's why Buddhists don't even believe in the soul. Because it's too attached. They need to have that detached compassion. So that is an intellectual thing, the intellect and the heart. But Jupiter is about sacrifice, specifically like spiritual sacrifice, sacrificing, having a ritual where you sacrifice, milk or, something. You're sacrificing something for the gods. to the gods. The priest is giving of himself through his ritual practice for the benefit. He's using his magical, spiritual, priestly ability to save and balance the universe and balance the community. And Jupiter is Santa Claus. Jupiter is about giving gifts. So Jupiter in and of itself, he just gives endlessly of himself. And that, of course, is the heart as well. And so what did Jesus do? The myth of Jesus is that he gave his life, not for himself, he gave his life for others. He gave himself away to others. And so this is Jupiter. Now, the obvious, as you know, I'm not a Christian, but the obvious downside of that is that in the Middle Ages, which was the period, that was Pisces, which is the fish, which is deep Jupiterian sacrifice. And what was the dominant religion? Christianity. What was the symbol of Christianity? The fish. So the fish represents the fish, dying and you eating the fish, literally. And that's, what do? You eat Jesus's body, you drink his blood. If you think about that, that's so weird and intense and crazy. We've just gotten used to it, but that's Jesus completely sacrificed. Not only that, eat my body, drink my blood. I'm going to go to hell for you. This is Jupiter. And of course, as I said, the downside is the same. You have dogmatism. So the heart, when the heart falls in love, it only falls in love with one person normally. And so dogmatic. I'm not gonna date anybody else. I'm only married to one person. Dogmatic, completely dogmatic to whatever your deity is. There is no other deity, it's just mine. And if you want to connect with me, I want to connect with you because I'm worshiping a heart-centered deity, which means I want to connect with everything and everybody. But you have to come into my church and worship my Jesus, and you have to give your soul to him. You have to sacrifice your soul to him, just like he sacrificed for you. And so the downside, of course, is, in the Middle Ages, people were told to pick up their cross and walk. It was a horrible existence, and if you were a good person, you were supposed to be miserable because you were sacrificing your pleasure, your lust, your desires of the physical world to Jesus. And so you were good if you just despised your humanity. That's the immature overdoing it, clearly. Instead of allowing, the lesson of that would be to allow somebody to give you their love and enjoy it and let yourself feel loved. And of course, the dogmatism of everybody following my path. So the higher level of the Jupiterian, I can't even say Jesus, the higher level of the Jupiterian Vishnu connection would be to be selfless, to sacrifice for others. But again, this is I found this to be very damaging. When people sacrifice, it becomes extremely codependent. So you see different variants of that. So that's why the Vishnu path is not a path for me, except if I were to choose one, it would be Narasimha, which of course is Mars. Mars is my planet of choice. And so that one, we could talk about that. So is Vishnu God or is Shiva God? It completely depends on what you need. If, depending on what you need in this lifetime and what planet, which of the three centers do you need? I don't know that there's anybody worshiping Brahma anymore. But that would be an interesting discussion. But people who are worshiping from the heart, they're going to pick Jesus, they're going to pick Buddha, they're going to pick Krishna, they're going to pick Rama, Narasimha, and it's about connecting from the heart and the need to connect, and they're going to have to get over their need to proselytize everybody for their own selfish need of feeling like they're one with everybody, and they're going to have to move beyond that and let everybody have their own path and love them unconditionally in their own path. For people who follow the Shiva path, I suppose I don't have a whole lot to say about that, because that would be me. I mean, my spiritual name is a name of Shiva, Mahadeva. So that's for somebody else. That's for some Vishnu worshiper to figure out what my limitations are and how I need to, whatever it is I need to do. So there's an interesting topic of discussion, and I hope that helps you in your path. If you want to understand, which deity is best for you, I would go to astrology.thunderwizard.com and get a reading from me or one of my astrology apprentices, because it's really important. For those of you that have had these readings, you know what it's like to have a deity that really empowers you energetically. For some people, that is Krishna. For some people, that is Mahadeva. For some people, it is whatever it is, whatever planet, whatever deity. So may you find the expression of infinity and divinity that allows you to find your true path and your true expression in this four-dimensional world that we live in and beyond. So with that, I will leave you, and I will see you very soon. Take care. Take back your soul. This is another transmission from Mahadeva here at thunderwizard.com headquarters, where you find the world's only unified spiritual energy system at thunderwizard.com. Get ready, because here I come.